Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of the Movie Date with Rob and Zach. I am Rob,
And I'm Zach.
and today we're going to be talking about a bunch of cool stuff, but mainly
True Detective.
season 1 and 2. And we'll talk about season 3 because it's going to be filming
In Arkansas.
Yeah,
The
Fort Smith.
best.
Yeah,
That's our stomping grounds, man.
pretty cool. Season 1, they did it in Louisiana. Season 2, they did it in Los Angeles. Boo.
Moving over to the big city.
I was a little disappointed that I heard they were doing it in Los Angeles because I was like, I like it in the dirty, grungy South. It works. It's something about it feels a little cooler.
Something about noir in the South does feel very appropriate.
and very just unique that you haven't seen before.
But going to LA, I don't want to keep making references to video games, but like that's part of why I think like LA noir worked, because you can have noir in a sunny, environment, and it still actually work as a thing.
Sure. Now, but before we get too into the weeds, let me catch everybody up. You've seen both of these. You've seen season 1
I
and
have.
season 2. I just recently rewatched season 1, so I'm caught up on that. I'm 5.5 episodes in on season 2, so we can't ruin the end for me because I am
latter half
interested in seeing what
spoilers.
happens.
Be
Yeah.
tread
Well,
the
this, well,
water.
this whole thing will be we'll do spoiler free as always in the beginning, and then after about 5 or 10
or as best as I can.
yeah, it's 10 minutes, and then we'll go into
Boy, do I just love talking about them spoilers.
sure, yeah, man, and we'll go from spoiler free to spoilers after about 10 minutes. So if you are listening to this, and you're like, don't ruin it. Well, we're not. You can rest easy. But what did you think of season 1?
Season 1, I thought that it had some of the most unique character work I'd seen in just about anything that I've seen in quite, up to that point. It was cool for me to see really the beginning of the reconnaissance, which is something we want to talk about a little bit in this too.
I see it on your notes.
Starting with stuff like Killer Joe, he started to take darker turns with his
Yeah.
work, and
I
True
remember-
Detective being probably the darkest thing he's ever done.
Yeah, I remember back when he was in Angels in the Outfield. The
Oh,
good old days.
man.
Yeah, I remember that. That was good.
Or what was that? All those rom-coms, one where he doesn't want to leave the nest, or am
Yeah.
I confusing that with who one wasn't? That's beside the point.
It was somewhere around 2012 where he did Killer Joe, and he did
Magic Mike, I think, could be considered a reconnaissance.
Yeah,
film.
it's a little more charming, but
And
he's still
funnily
really
enough,
good in it. He's
the
played by
reconnaissance started with a movie set in Arkansas.
Yeah, and he did Mud, he did Killer Joe, he did True Detective, he did the Christopher Nolan
Interstellar.
go to space. Love is a bookcase. 'Cause that's what that movie's
or
about.
Gravity is a bookcase.
Black
and a
holes
black
lead
hole
to
and
lead to
the-
wormholes that are bookcases.
So much.
It's my least favorite
confusing
Christopher
shit.
Nolan movie, audience. It's not-
At least the Magic
listeners.
School Bus was able to explain its science to us in a way that made sense. Christopher Nolan, not so much.
Not in that movie. It's my least favorite Nolan movie. I think it's okay.
Yeah, True Detective Season 1, man, just being in the South, having really the dichotomy of the two characters, Marty and Rust Cole.
Yeah.
One is just, for all intents and purposes, from my mind, almost clueless to a lot of things. He's very one track. And then he has this antithesis. in
Before
Rust
we
Cole.
get into that, I thought season 1 was, it was one of those things where I was like, nothing's gonna beat Game of Thrones for me or Breaking Bad, and then I saw that and I was like, oh, is the whole show gonna be like this?
True Detective did it for you.
It starts off with just like, you see this guy dragging this naked woman through this cornfield to put her up on this tree and stuff, and there's like a big fire, and it's like shot really. It's shot the way like a $100 million movie, like Lincoln or something, would be shot.
Right.
Which is what initially attracted me. It's set in the South, but it's not like
So this show comes out.
nobody's funny in the show. Like everyone is like, we'll get to my theory. I have a theory about how every man thinks he's Matthew McConaughey from True Detective.
Sure,
I
there's
remember-
a lot to identify with.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to like in the show, and I think one of the reasons is like it's it is noir-ish, and it's done in such a way that, like, when you think of noir off the top of your head, you think of, two guys in a trench coat, black and white, with a lot of rain going, mashy,
Yeah, or maybe even stuff like Sin City.
which is great.
Yeah, still black and white.
I like it. Yeah, but
in True Detective, you have all of this completely separate color palettes.
Yeah, it's the thing about, like, when you think of noir, Sin City is like the best of that kind of neo-noir thing where it's so uber stylized. I think I read a review where it said, like, it's cheap thrills polished to the degree of high art. And I was like, yeah, I think that's what it is. And, like, they have, like, the voiceover, look the devil in the eye, all that stuff.
You gotta have a good monologue.
Yeah, you don't have that in this, but you have everything else. And I think we'll talk
The monologues are good. There are monologues, but I feel like most of the monologues are pure, like, but noir things are told through just the character work.
And also, it's like, in noir, you get voiceover. Like, this is Joe. He was a good cop back in his day, but he's a little worse for wear now.
And it almost seems as if the voiceover for True Detective is really just the landscape. It's Louisiana itself.
Yeah, and you get, like, instead of getting those weird voiceovers, which I'm always like, these never feel... In noir, in like old noir movies, they never feel real to me. In Sin City, they feel real, but because it's based off a comic book and it has this edgy grit to it. In True Detective, you get the life is a flat circle.
Yeah, it feels like another world almost.
Yeah, which is that's the small criticism I have of it. Is like I look at these shows, particularly season 1 and I would say to a higher degree season 2. They're filled with people who I don't recognize in real life.
Sure,
I don't see people like that, but. Bitching about shows on HBO not being they don't have dragons in real life either.
That's part of what I think where I think the title comes from is you may not have people who are this
cool
cool or just this intense in real life, but these are symptoms of a true detective.
I'm changing the setting. I forgot to put the setting on minutes so I can know how long we're going.
Oh no,
sorry. We're not editing this. We're leaving it in.
Yeah.
We're leaving it in the air. And that little thing where I hit the closet door. No, I think that, and I think that even though it's filled with people that I don't always see, is like, I don't know anyone who talks like that. But because you don't know anybody like that, it's interesting and fresh. So I really liked it. I thought it was amazing. I think it was one of the year I saw it, I was like, I think this is as good as Game of Thrones in a different way. And I feel like it made me like dark, gritty dramas in a way that I hadn't liked before.
For me, it took it was really my first foray into like really the new age of serialized television, which is where it's really just a big fucking long movie.
Yeah,
it's the Lonesome Dove, but with a giant budget.
Yeah, I would say like a show like The Wire probably started that off, where it's like a giant movie, where it's kind of, sort of like a giant movie with a bunch of characters and stuff. And I think that True Detective season 1 at least is like the apex of this. Season 2,
or at least the crest of some sort of wave of it.
Sure, and we're gonna get into specific things that we like here in a little bit, but I want to talk about season 2 for a bit. Give me your thoughts on season 2. Now, season 2 is kind of seen as inferior to the first one. A lot of people
don't like it.
They don't like it. My aunt said it was quote unquote horse shit.
Ooh. I think it's mostly because people don't really like Colin Farrell all that much, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
He does seem a little wooden at times. His accent slips.
I love him. I think he's great in this show. He's probably my favorite of the characters.
You could even say that Colin Farrell, starting with probably, he's had a reconnaissance of his own, starting with like shit like The Lobster.
Yeah. He was good in the last Harry Potter spinoff they did. He plays the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can dig that. Colin Farrell's a bad guy.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
But I think that he's always been great though. I remember like going like back like a decade. I've always seen him in movies, and I've always been, that guy's good. He has like tabloid stuff where he gets in the tabloids. He's dating this supermodel, and he left her for her younger sister. And I'm like, I don't really care. But like I listen to like some of his movies, even movies that are like that have kind of not aged well, like Alexander. I still watch it, and I'm like, that's still pretty good. I like that.
So can you say that one of the reasons why you may not hate the second season as much as other people is because of Colin Farrell?
Well, I think here's the thing with season 2. I think it is and you've seen the whole thing, I think, multiple times probably.
Okay, I've seen True Detective season 1 probably like 4 times.
What about season 2?
Season 2, 2 times.
2 times, okay.
Because I had to watch it twice just to make sure I wasn't, I guess, like wrong about it. Like I did like it as much as I did.
Yeah. Okay. No, here's what I'm at with season 2. Season 1 is great. One, because it doesn't have too many characters. It's literally about this guy and this guy. It's about Marty and Rust. And their dynamic carries the entire show, and their personal struggles and their failings. They're both really flawed people in different ways.
Sure.
And I think that because of that, and also it has all the best crime movies and dramas and cop dramas or whatever, anything crime related that we like the most is we like watching people track down a serial killer. That's why we like movies like Seven.
We do.
Because it's about catching a serial killer. And there's something, at the essence of like every person who ever became a detective was like, one day I'm going to catch down the New England Strangler or something like that. And I think that True Detective Season 1 does that in such a way where it's not only they're tracking down a serial killer, but it's mysterious and dark, and you don't know what's happening. There's these weird occult references, and
lots of Santeria, lots of voodoo,
yeah,
lots of stuff that people aren't really familiar with.
And they keep it vague and
so
way, and it's in enough of a way where you're like, there's something really different that I've never seen here going on. Whereas season 2 is about, and I am barely able to sort of connect with exactly what's happening. There's a land deal between Vince Vaughn and his associates, some of whom are criminals and some of whom are normal corporate jackoffs, and one of the guys gets killed, and it puts its plans into a bunch of problems, and then we have a bunch of characters around this. And that's where I think that some people watch it and go, "This is boring. This is not as good as the first one.
Sure.
Bring back the murderer who is a weirdo that we need to catch."
It doesn't bring you as alien of a world.
Sure, yeah, I think that's true. It brings you the mud and the muck of like a city like Vinci,
right,
which is where it's supposed to be set, which is like this immigrant
outskirts, very industrial.
It's on the outside of like L.A., but it's blown up recently because immigrants have moved in there because corporations are reopening these factories where they're going to pollute rivers and stuff so they can make money. So it's become like a crony capitalist haven, and that's why it's exploding. So you feel like this dilapidated world, which is weird because Vinci's a real city that you can just go to.
Yep.
And I'm sure that it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, well, we don't know. I mean, it's painted in the show as like a very,
seedy and corrupt. But a lot of that is, fictional. I'm sure it's fictionalized. But my point is like, I think when you're dealing with something, it does a good job of setting up the world. Like I feel like season 1 and season 2 feel like sister seasons.
They do.
They feel related, but both in the tone, the visual aspect, and they both have a big thing in the middle of the season.
They both have a big thing, and they both have parts where you lose the narrative. Like I know you couldn't follow entirely what was going on in season 1 without a rewatch. Like
I think I did it maybe, but I think I did it better than season 2.
Yeah, season 2 muddles it up a lot further.
But season 2 I
think it's very deliberate. In fact, it has moments in it where it literally spends time to, okay, let's recap. Okay.
And I think they actually do a recap on season 2. Every episode that's previously on True Detective. I don't know if they did that on season 1, but
not even just in like the opening sequence or opening credits do a recap, but like the characters in dialogue in part of the narrative recapping. And just kind of, okay, let's bring everybody back together because the shit kind of hit the fan.
It's like Game of Thrones with like 90 characters, but instead of the 90 characters, it's like 90 events that happened.
Well, what's cool is with
what I think that happened was like, I think that you said something last week, which I think is true about this show. After our last podcast, we went outside and we were just shooting the shit, and I think that because I heard people saying like it's muddy and it's season 2. It's muddy and it's confusing and you don't always understand where everything's at. So I made a very active part on my part to go like, okay, I'm gonna remember what happens. Who's this guy? What's his name? I would like literally look at myself.
Attention. Pause, rewind, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I was like, I want to know what's happening. And even then, I still got lost a couple times.
Yeah.
But you said this show is not about like the plots as much.
No,
it's about the characters.
It is.
And then, obviously, characters need
it's all about
a story.
The main characters and their journey through this thing that's happening all around them. That's never really explained.
Sure.
Like, it's...
And I think that if you look at it through that lens, Season 2 is a bit flawed and a bit more mundane compared to Season 1. But I think that it's still pretty solid. Like, if I'm giving numbers, I'm going to endeavor... on this show.
You
Remember,
want to give a rating? You want to give an official rating?
No, whenever we review a movie or a show, I'm never gonna just give it a number. I mean, I will colloquially, like I was like, if I had to, I'd say it's a 7 out of 10. But like in season 1 is a 10 out of 10. I don't like doing numbers. I like just saying, you want to know what I think? Just listen to the podcast and hear my total sum thoughts,
Sure.
and that's what I think of the movie or whatever. And that's
My
how
opinion
I like
is
to do
more
it.
than just a number.
Yeah. Like a friend of mine's, like whenever I watch podcasts, like or even like review shows or whatever, they're like
Watch podcasts.
Yeah, watch podcasts. Well, they're visual podcasts.
Sure.
But like you look at one and it'll be like this person gave this movie, which is worse than this movie, an 8, but the movie that he likes better, he gave a 6.
And
it's
we don't know
and I'm
why
just
we like something more than something else.
Yeah, sometimes each movie is its own deal. So like the way I look at it is like, yeah, I'll give it a number if I have to, for the sake of
it's kind of like the Cloverfield effect.
Oh God.
It kind of is. They're anthologies.
Yeah.
But you're gonna like one more than the other.
Yeah, and it's about I think it is about your taste. I think it's about the characters. So now that we've talked some more about this, I think you like season 2 a little more than I do.
I do.
But I haven't finished it yet. I got 2.5 episodes left. So that's where I'm at with it.
Well, I like how season 2 takes a lot of the ideas that it brings to the viewer in season 1 with this deep character work and stuff, and it maybe not tries to amplify it, but definitely explore, just what, other sorts of characters, other true detectives.
Sure.
Even further.
Also, I would even say that like one thing season 2 does have that I think maybe got overlooked
Different
in some
archetypes.
in some critiques is that, but also the performances are all really solid.
Right.
There's not a single person I'm like, this person's boring and I don't like them. Like I think all of them are great. Even Taylor
all
Kitsch,
intense.
who I
Which
have
is
some notes in. I'm like, I think
arguably
he's
the weakest of the 3 detectives.
even
in
then
season
I'm
2.
like, I think he's good in this, and he became a kind of a laughing stock because he did like Battleship and he did John Carter and it flopped and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, I like John Carter. I thought it was fine, but like he kind of had a rough go in Hollywood, and I was like, it's cool seeing him do something that's like grounded and flexes his dramatic chops.
Complex.
Yeah.
Dude's dealing with a lot of emotions in this.
Yeah, so on that point, let's go ahead and dive into some of the spoilers. You've heard our initial thoughts. Let's start with season 1, some of the things you like about season 1, and we'll just go through and we'll talk about it.
All right. Really, this thing, it drips, absolutely drips, Nietzsche and nihilism and things of that nature.
I would say the characters do more than the show does.
Sure.
Because,
Rust Cole, just, oh God.
Yeah, because here's my thing with we were talking about. I mentioned just like
every man thinks
he's Matthew
Cole.
McConaughey, and I said there's even I think I remember saw a bit where like every man hears the brooding dark soundtrack of a noir film in his head, like the music
We all
like the
want
music
that
we hear.
monologue.
Yeah, like the music that we hear in these shows, season 1 or 2 or whatever. We hear that dark, brooding, droning electronic soundtrack, and we feel like that's how cool we are.
Like,
and I feel like this show is why I think that, because I think every man when he's by himself on a bus surrounded by people,
and I got
thinks
that
he's
at
that.
like an early age. I played like Max Payne, the Max Payne games when I was probably too young to play them.
Yeah.
And so I kind of idolized that brooding, anti-hero sentiment. Like you can be dark and mysterious, but still serve some justice.
It was the big time I saw Matthew McConaughey being dark. Like I saw him in movies where he played tough guys, where like he was in Reign of Fire,
Sure.
and he plays like a badass, and I was like, yeah, he can do it. Of course, he's jacked, but I was like, in this he plays like a despondent nihilist who, by his own admission, says like, I would kill myself, but I don't have the constitution for suicide.
Don't have the constitution.
Yeah.
Those car talks are the best.
Yeah. And I think that but at the same time when he says,
and he just says some depressing shit, and Marty's just like, would you just stop talking?
Marty, he was like, you ass, and he goes, yeah, now I'm begging you to shut the fuck up.
So good.
And I was like, I was like, this is like
such good dark comedy too. In their banter.
It's weird because I think in the hands of a less good actor, I think it wouldn't work. I don't know if it would work, him being able to balance the line of being despondent and kind of feeling like
McConaughey
everything
pulls
is
off
pointless.
emo pretty well.
Yeah, but also like everything is pointless, but also he'll come to dinner with your family and he'll get drunk and he'll feel bad about it. So like there's that weird thing where like you got to play it easy, and he cares enough to be a police detective and solve murders. So I'm like, that's a weird thing.
And he parses it out in his mind as, oh, I'm just good at this. But no, man, you're not just good at it. You know, you want to do some good in the world.
And that is, I mean, even like...
He just doesn't want to admit it to himself.
Even something like that is, even as cliched as that might sound, like he's the detective who sees things deeper than we do or whatever. That's a cliche we see in cop movies all the time, but he made me forget about it. Like when he comes up and they go, they used to call him the tax man because he would carry around...
It's believable.
And he opens the thing up and he's looking at this naked woman and stuff, and I was like, I didn't even think about like, oh, the silent genius. Like I was like, no, this is cool. This is good.
See, I didn't even see him as even like a... In fact, I don't think Rust Cole is as smart as Rust Cole thinks he is.
Sure.
I think he's just... that disposition lends itself in that particular area of the country to maybe making one seem like they've got it all figured out. No one else does.
He's surrounded by a bunch of rubes in rural Louisiana, and he thinks he's superior. And
in a lot of ways,
in a lot of ways, he might actually be. But like, I think that like the joy of this show is watching him and Marty spar with each other in a way. And I think that like it's watching when you juxtapose Marty with Rust. Rust is like self-sufficient. He lives in a tiny little bungalow or whatever.
His mirror just lets him look at one eye.
Yeah, and he just has that little cross on the wall in a mattress with no frame, and he sleeps there. And like that's it. Like that's his whole life.
And that's good enough.
Marty's got like Marty is like the epitome of like a guy who's his own worst enemy, but he doesn't take responsibility. He sleeps around on his wife while at the same time wanting his daughter to be, you know, his eldest daughter to be less of a whore.
And one of the things about Marty that I noticed is this is one of just a talking point that I was reading about online through just reading about it, and one of the things it says Marty is unwilling to recognize the evil that surrounds him. One of those points comes across when his daughter is, you know, making like rape scenes with her Barbie dolls and stuff like that, and he probably maybe should have delved a little further into that. Hey, what's going on?
There's even a scene after that where him and his wife talk about that, and he was like, I don't know what to do. Like, what more do you want me to do? And he's like, well, girls always end up knowing this stuff first. You know, maybe we should be more proactive or something. And he's kind of laissez-faire about it. He's like, no, kids will be crazy. We talked to her about it. We addressed it. So what else can we do? And I think that's his... I think that sort of sums up all of his problems.
And you see him kind of breaking down through the show and realizing more and more of this evil actually exists. Like when they round up who they believe to be their first, their guy, you know, the big shootout in the bayou. He is confronted with these things that absolutely disgust him throughout the show. Like these big evils that he sees in his eye.
Sure. Some of them... I think he is upset by because they remind him of himself.
Sure.
Yeah, because like he's, you know, a horrible philanderer and stuff like that. So when he sees like, you know, acts of sexual perversion, it maybe even reminds him of his own shortcomings to a degree. I think that there's that in there because Marty is like a case of projection.
And there's one of those things that Cole says to him when they visit the bunny ranch. Marty gives one of the young prostitutes there who's obviously not of age, you know, some money, say, do something else with your life. And, you know, when they're interrogating the guy and
this is all spoilers, by the way.
Yeah, Rust really tears into the dude they're interrogating, and Marty's like, oh, you didn't have to say that. You know, it probably tore him up. And he's like, well, it's probably, he's like, it's weird the shit you get sentimental about. Yeah. And I think that Marty, his heart's in the right place. He just doesn't know where that right place is.
Yeah, he doesn't want to take a lot of responsibility for his actions.
Not at all.
And I think he's one of those guys who gets married and home life hits him, and he's like, oh no, like we're not going to be able to have sex as much as we want. We're not going to be.
He's absolutely that guy.
Yeah, and I think, but you know, I think that the interesting thing is when you put a guy like that next to Cole, it makes Cole seem like more of a fuck up in a way, because when he comes over to the dinner at their house, like in the first episode or something, and he's drunk.
He's thrashed.
You go like, what's wrong with this guy? Get it together. Woody Harrelson has it together. Like, you go like that, and you're like, and then
he may be sleeping on his wife, but at least he can have dinner.
Like you feel that. I think that the chemistry is really good between both of them. And there's just to talk about like the number of times. Like there's the one where they go to the Bible tent.
Oh yeah,
And Marty says like they're having this cynical conversation, and Rusk says something like, "What do you think the average IQ of the average IQ is of this group of people?"
Where
here?"
Marty's stance is they're just trying to get by, man.
Yeah,
they just
and he
need
goes,
something
"Well,"
to get them through the day.
Yeah, and he goes, "Well, maybe, but I don't see any of them splitting the atom anytime soon," or something like
Right.
that. And he goes, "For a guy who thinks that all this is bullshit, you spend a lot of time fretting about it." And he goes, "If we didn't have this stuff in the world, it would be a real shit show, and everyone would be murdering and debauchery." And Rust says, like, if all this
The only
stuff,
thing
the only
keeping
thing
a man decent is the expectation of divine reward, then that person is a piece of shit.
it's already a piece of shit. And I was like, that kind of is his whole outlook. But in a way, he's self-reflective enough to know, like, maybe he's right, but maybe I think what he's saying in that little line to Marty is basically like, sometimes comforting lies keep society going in a way, especially in a place like that, which is why he says stuff like, "I can smell the psychosphere," because he can feel like the mental gymnastics people do in this
To keep
area.
themselves sane.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool and fascinating. I also love one thing that I like about this show as well, season 1, because it deals with like a serial killer, is it deals with the fact that, like, as they're tracking this guy down, like I said earlier, that they do cliches that I completely ignore because of how well it's presented or how real it seems.
And that's actually true with both seasons. There's a lot of corn. Lots of corn.
But
corny things that happen.
But it's done in a way where you're like, well, what's wrong with that? It seems perfectly logical.
Yeah. The weird way they're speaking are those $5 words that would be normally out of place or completely in place.
Which is, like I said, like, I don't know, these people aren't real to me, but I don't need them to be real. I just kind of need to enjoy the soaking in the atmosphere. But one of them would be like, how, in a number of thrillers where they're hunting down a serial killer, the serial killer is seen to have, like, some philosophy that is not unlike, when we were talking about Russ, he's something of a genius, and it takes the genius detective to catch the genius serial killer. Like Hannibal Lecter is a guy who's so smart and so philosophically
and it took a young
present.
upstart just as, tenacious.
Yeah, and we see, when we finally meet the killer, which, by the way, that was, like, my favorite reveal as well. I think that's one of my favorite reveals.
I honestly thought the weakest episode was the last episode, the big or what are you talking when you see him in the schoolyard?
No. That is technically the first reveal, but the first time we know he's the killer is when the two black detectives. And by the way, I even like that angle, is that this whole thing is them being interviewed. It's a great little plot device to let them monologue.
Sure.
It's a great way to have Woody Harrelson talk about, Rust was good with people, but I was steady. And then you have, you get...
On the opposite side, you've got Mr. Doom and Gloom over there.
He tells him, cans. Yeah, go buy me beer, please. And he goes, I drink on Thursdays, and this is Thursday,
you don't get
so I'm going to drink.
That.
You don't get to interrupt that. So because of that, it's a great plot device that I didn't even really think about till after I was watching. I was like, that's a great way to get good writing into the show without having to worry about, like, how do we write monologues that don't sound stupid?
That's actually one thing that I wish they would have delved into more, is I wanted to know more about the black detectives. I wanted to know more about their characters. You only really get hints of their characters, which they're not super important to the overall story and plot, but I was interested in them.
But getting back to the idea. Oh God, no, not microphone. But getting back to the idea of cliches or whatever, and like, when we first meet the killer, it's like the black detectives pull up and they're trying to find this church, and he goes, "Oh, you go down this way," and blah blah blah. And then as they're ignoring him, he starts giving them this little screed about his family, and
my family's been here for a long time.
And you see his face, and you see the scars for the first time, and you're like, "Oh my God,
shit!"
That's the dude." And like, as soon as you see him, then you go, "Oh my God, it's the guy from the guy they met at the schoolyard
back in '95."
Yeah, and like Rust goes back to that school years later and finds one of those little teepees
The little
that they're creating.
voodoo twig sculpture things.
Yeah,
that are present throughout the whole thing.
and I was like, the idea that this guy is leaving these little things, and like it's sort of, and Rust says it when he first meets him, or not meets the killer, but when he first sees his first kill, that it's like, it's all about ritual, and it's about, his own lust, but also his own shame of his lust, combined into one, and he leaves
He wants to get caught.
Yeah, he leaves these places, these things as
he thinks what he's doing is important.
Yeah, exactly, and I think he's leaving these little twig teepees as totems of like, this is a holy place. Something great happened here almost.
Sure.
And I think that that sounds cliched, that like I said, that the killer is smarter than you. And by the way, there's definitely some psychopathy, because the first time we hear him, in the last episode when we first started seeing him, he changes accents,
he changes moods.
He might, I don't know if that woman he's with is his sister, but they're probably having sex.
They're making flowers.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of weird things, but like even on top of that, I never thought like, well, that's cliched. He's a fucking crazy person, and like he's a genius who sees the world in a different way or has a different moral code.
A lot of people could just see it as he's just a drug-addled, inbred loon. But...
Yeah, it works either way though, and I think it just like, but I think the reason that I don't mind these cliches, and I think they are cliches, and it's okay to acknowledge there are a bunch of cliches that I love.
Oh sure.
Whenever you
it's
see
noir, it drips noir. It's gonna have some.
And whenever
cliches.
you're in like I'm not even talking about just noir, but like when you watch a movie and someone goes no. Like, I love that cliche.
Yeah.
Even if it's in a bad movie. I watched like The Phantom Menace.
Okay, what would you yell if you had a family Lion King family member going off the cliff?
Exactly. We like
You'd
those.
probably yell no.
They become cliches for a reason, and I think the reason that these cliches don't bother me is because they're presented in such a way that is very, for lack of a better word, very highfalutin. They're very, they're very technical term there, highfalutin. But it's presented in such a way as like, look how beautiful this looks. Look how serious everyone's taking this, and because of that, it's not a cheesy direct to DVD cop movie. It's like
it's
Sin
something
City,
that's
it's
worth
cheap.
your time.
It's cheap thrills polished to the degree of high art. And by the way, we're going to sprinkle some Nietzschean philosophy in there.
Sure.
And I think that makes it that much better.
It just gives it more gravitas.
Yeah, gravitas. if we want to use the word. What else do you have on your notes that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I actually kind of just want to read my notes off because these are. I spent 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes, at work. Oh shit! I got to write some notes about True Detective real quick. Good versus evil, the banality of evil, rust and religion, bromance, time is a flat circle. That's those Nietzschean vibes there.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that one especially.
Extreme skepticism, drug use, nature. This one I really wanted to talk about. Throughout the whole show, you see these scapes of Louisiana, and there's always some kind of like machinery, well-refined something going on in the background, like amongst the jungle. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like even in the little shanty towns.
Which I've been to Louisiana. It is like that.
Yeah?
Yeah. Part of it, like the bayou is definitely like that.
So yeah, nature takes over man-made stuff and vice versa. So you see, like when Russ says like, I'm in someone's faded memory of a town, like, it always builds on that vibe.
What I like about Rust, and especially like when he says like the time is a flat circle monologue, what I like about that is he's basically saying is that like people can't change, and that if every day we woke up and had the opportunity to do things again, it would always wind down to be exactly the same.
Exact same.
He says like what those kids who were found by those
they were always gonna die.
They were always gonna die, or they were always gonna be there. And he goes, we don't get to change these things or escape these things. It's like
we're just bearing witness.
Yeah, it's the ultimate sort of cynicism, and I think one of the reason I like that so much is it makes it interesting, because if he's this despondent about everything, why does he feel the need to catch this guy? That's actually a question we don't really get an answer to. No. They kind of just hint at it, like for some reason he's a cop.
For someone who doesn't believe in destiny,
yeah,
he certainly seems to exhibit some traits that make it seem like he does.
Yeah, and also like, I mean, the closest we get is like, oh, he had a daughter once, and the daughter died, and he was married, and he was happy once, and then that died, and everything kind of was ruined for him. But he was a cop when that happened. So we don't know what the impetus is for him to become a cop. So I like the idea. I like anti-heroes, and I like the idea of this guy feels a need to hunt this guy down. And Marty probably does it for the same reasons most people become a cop. They get a steady paycheck and they get to do some good in the world.
It's just the job.
Yeah, but I think that Rust's motivation for that is more interesting.
He sees it as really like, he's the knight in kind of like the knight in shining armor or something. Like he sees himself as probably as some sort of hero.
Yeah. And in a way, like I think that one of the things he listed was his drug use. Sure. I like the fact that his backstory is that like
narco.
Yeah, and I think
it's still classified.
Yeah, he killed somebody on like one of his jobs or something, or he killed a guy.
Big shootout in the Houston port, I think, is what it was.
Yeah, well, I thought he killed some guy who cooked his baby in a microwave or something, or did something really horrible and atrocious.
And then they took him off. So the story is, if I'm remembering it correctly, he ended up through his first run through of being undercover or whatever. He busts one on a crackhead for feeding the baby meth or something. Yeah, and then gets taken off.
He said he wanted to cleanse her or something.
Sure,
like that.
And then he gets taken off, and then he gets put back undercover, and that's when he goes into the deep shit.
Yeah, because they said they shopped him around as like a deep insider
for hire.
Undercover guy, and he would do all sorts of drugs, and his brain has severe neural damage. And because of that, he sees, shapes in the birds, and he sees and it almost gets him killed, because at the last time when they finally track down this guy, he's he has one of those episodes and he sees a universe above him and this black hole, and the guy comes and sticks a knife in his side, and I was as soon as it happened, I knew that was gonna happen. As soon as you start seeing
you're
stars,
gonna get distracted.
And I was like, what are you doing, man? Pay attention, you're fighting it, you're in a stick maze.
You can't trip out now.
Yeah, and I thought that was super interesting.
Well, I see that as like a big thing, that he's finally there, he's at the epicenter of everything that he's been following, pretty much half his fucking life.
Sure.
He's got his guy. It's his destiny almost complete.
Yeah. And at the end, we do get something of an arc for him, whereas when he had that vision and he passed out, he went to another place and he saw his daughter and his dad there, and he felt supreme happiness, and even when they were leaving, he knew that everything was good again.
And it harkens back to something he says about when he starts looking through pictures of DBs, dead bodies, constantly doing casework, and he says to Marty something along the lines of, just look at their faces, you can tell that in each in their last moments they weren't afraid, they welcomed it or whatever. Yeah. So that it kind of brings back full circle that it's like he died, but his work's not done.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that it's a great way of stripping away his cynicism by the end of the show. And I think that's necessary too.
And he has a hopeful message at the end.
Yeah.
The light's winning.
Yeah. He goes, there's a whole lot more light up there now, or something like that. And I was like, yeah, that's nice. And I think that one of the reason it matters is because earlier in the show, even the two detectives interviewing him, and it's revealed in the show that these murders haven't stopped since they caught the guy, and I also like that Rust and Marty are not above lying, because when they have this epic, and by the way, I think it's episode 3 or 4, there's this amazing sequence where Rust goes undercover as a biker to catch these to catch these two meth guys
who are going to lead them to...
one of the bikers is going to lead him to a guy named Reggie Ledoux. Yeah, and...
who they believe to be the serial killer.
Yeah, they think he's the serial killer.
And he's not. He's just one of the serial killer's acolytes.
Yeah, or something like that. And so he goes undercover, and they basically say, all right, well, you got to prove to us that you're still down with the renegade life. And they go to this, hood house in the middle of the projects or something, and dressed up as cops. And they're gonna
go steal some drugs, money, something.
Steal some drugs and some drug money and something so they can use it or whatever. And basically, one of the guys goes AWOL and kills one of the people on the ground. And as soon as that happens, he goes over and he punches the guy they're trying to get alone so they can interrogate him or whatever. And there's this giant 8,
Shit
9...
dissolves fast.
It does. And there's this giant 8-9 minute tracking shot where the camera follows him on this journey
through the
ghetto. He's attacked at least twice by some like gangbangers with baseball bats or whatever, and they all the way to
and the whole time he's high as fuck.
Yeah, and he's been when I saw that I was like, this is what separates this from other noir sort of driven shows. Is like that must have taken months to plan.
Sure.
Down to like there's parts where like he goes around a wall, but he knows people are coming out, so he dashes back behind. Everybody goes out. And they head the other way, but then he finally sees his moment to leave, so he goes around the wall to climb over the fence, but one person looks back, sees him, calls all the other guys, and they go back the other way, and they see him, and I was like, Jesus, like that must have taken weeks down to every little pause. Everyone, even the background actors, have to be on point to pull that off.
And True Detective happened before films like Birdman or The Revenant or even Daredevil. When Daredevil, Netflix show, it's got all those amazing, just one shot hallway fight scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
And
it only has one. It's in episode 2, but it's pretty amazing.
But I feel like that episode informed a lot of what had come after, especially those. It made shit so visceral.
Yeah,
and it puts you there.
Because of that, whenever I watch, it's because of that and 300. I went back and watched 300 recently, 4 or 5 months ago or something, and I remember watching it and being like, a lot of these action scenes are tracking shots. There's no cuts, no edits.
Yeah.
It's just all one deal, and I was like, that's a pain in the ass, and it looks so good the way they're shot. So I was like, now whenever I see a good tracking shot that all encompasses its thing, and the camera never feels like, oh, this extra is waiting for the camera to get here before he does his thing.
That's how it feels really fluid, natural, like it actually happened.
Yeah, that's season 1's big thing. Season 2's big thing, we'll get to that in a bit. But because of that, all right, so they get him through the ghetto, and by the way, as it ends, it has like a aerial shot. It pans up, and you see this pandemonium, and you see like how like gunfire and automatic weapons and explosions and like a war with the police essentially. And I was like, Jesus Christ, all this to catch a serial killer. And so they finally get there, and they
got to get their man, dude.
Yeah, they finally get him to track down to let Reggie Ledoux. They track Reggie Ledoux's partner back to their place, and they're tracking him through. And they finally get there, and they
got the jump on him.
Yeah, they case the house. Russ gets Reggie Ledoux on the ground, and he's got the spirally tattoo. Russ is, I'm sure, thinks he's got the dude. He's talking about what's the name of the place that him and the serial killer talk about? Samsara,
Carcosa, the Yellow King.
Yeah, all that
mystic shit.
So he definitely thinks he's got him. And then he has Marty go inside to clear the house. Marty goes in. He sees these 2 kids. One of them's dead. One of them's probably been horribly comatose, and like is probably God knows what happened. He comes out and he's overcome by his anger, and he kills the guy.
Pops one right off in his head.
Yeah, literally kills the dude right then and there. The other guy sees that,
runs off,
immediately bolts, which by the way, good move.
Gets killed by one of his own bomb traps.
Yeah, they have a landmine. He steps on it and he blows up, and he's lasagna. So as soon as that happens, Rust is already going like, all right, how do we spin this?
Yeah,
I like that he's not above being kind of a lying.
No, man,
prick.
he's undercover. It was narco days, man. He knows the sitch.
Yeah, and he does that, and he gets the machine gun and he laces the surrounding area.
Makes it seem like they never got the jump on him. That they were fucked from the start.
Yeah,
and had to kill them.
Yeah, and they got recommendations of valor and stuff for it, and it's like, man, it's in a way, like, look, I'm sure if those people were real, I wouldn't be too broken up about some horrible child molesting meth dealers who kill people and work for some serial killer. I would be like, that's not the worst thing that could have happened, but I would be like, it's built on lies, and there's something wrong about that I can't put my foot on. But
that's part of a great noir story, I feel like, because there really aren't any good guys. They're the hero or the anti-hero, but there are no good guys.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that too. Do you think that it's a trait of not even just noirs, but I would say even like some westerns to a degree?
It's a trait of people in general, man.
I don't believe that. But I do think that, like, noirs and in westerns to a degree, I think one of the fundamental traits is that the main character is not a good guy. Or maybe he's only as good as this world would let him be.
Sure.
Or something like that. Do you think that's like part of like why we like noirs or whatever, is that they're kind of flawed people? Especially stuff like this.
I think that's why they work. Not even just why we like them. I don't even think noir would work if it was Captain America in a dreary, whatever. No, they have to have their flaws, and they have to have their their demons that are right there, full front and center.
Sure. I'll even say that maybe season 2 does that a little better.
I think so.
Of making us like people that are kind of a little worse.
That are kind of shitheads.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about season 1. Let's get to season 2 now. I got some notes here that I'll bring up for season 2.
Well, you got the notes for season 2.
Yeah. Just things that I want to talk about here. One, I think I like to think that these are all set in the same world.
Sure, they're real places, real cities.
Yeah, but I like to think that these are all set in the same fictional world that we live in, of fictional Los Angeles, fictional Louisiana. Season 3 is going to be in fictional Arkansas.
They're what our ideas of these places are.
Yeah, but I like the idea that somewhere in Louisiana, Marty and Rust Cole are still recovering from nearly being killed by a giant, crazy serial killer, and that in Los Angeles, Colin Farrell is still doing whatever he's doing or whatever. I haven't seen the final episode, so I don't know. But I think that
it's so hard not to spoil. I'm the spoiled guy.
But I do think that I like to think that these are anthologies, and that maybe theoretically these people could run into each other. I don't know why I like that.
That would be sick.
Yeah, like if in season 3 we meet McConaughey for an episode or whatever, I'd be like, that's good.
He imparts some wisdom on our new detective.
You're like, don't give a fuck about anything. Give it all up, man. It don't make a difference.
You never got your real guy until you know you got your real guy.
Yeah, anyway, but here's as far as characters in season 2. I have Colin Farrell, nice guy, lost way. I like the fact that he's the one that I like the most out of these people, and he's arguably the worst person.
Yeah.
He
does all the bad things. He's playing both sides of the law. He's a liar. He's a fucking drug abuser.
Literally beats people up.
Yeah.
Like not even like he some dude bullies his son, and he goes home to teach him a lesson beats
dog shit out of him.
No, not him, but his dad.
Yeah,
beats up his dad. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And I was like, and like there's a journalist who is researching Ben Casper, which is like the first kill of this season 2.
It's who it all centers around.
Yeah,
who killed Casper?
Yeah, and there's the guy that like is investigating this guy in this newspaper, and he goes to his house with a mask, a balaclava or whatever on his face, and beats the shit out of him. We don't see it happen, but we see the blinds being rustled and stuff. So we know he enforces for Vince Vaughn's character, who is a gangster,
sympathetic gangster.
Kind of. I don't even know.
I like to call him the sympathetic gangster.
I think out of all of the characters, the main ones, I like him the least. Not Vince even as a person, but as I like the performance the least, because it is the most unworldly. He is the one who I'm like, that people aren't like that.
Don't think?
I've never met a person who is that.
In Los
intense.
Angeles, where people, they're all about themselves. It's like the narcissism. You don't think that...
I think people can be narcissistic, and I think that they can be rude, and I think that they can be, oblivious to your wants or desires or whatever. He's just mean. The number of times he gets too into...
He has to be. He's got to be hard.
But, even to, people for no reason. The number of people he gets 2 inches from their face and gives them the crazy eyes and stuff.
He's the character with the biggest chip on his shoulder.
That's true.
And it explains it. It explains why he's got a big old chip.
Yeah. I liked that scene, by the way, where he's lying in bed and he talks about the time his dad would lock him in the cellar when he wanted to go out and drink.
Sure.
And one day he got arrested, and his son Vince Vaughn, was in that cellar for 7 days.
Days and days.
He learned out of food. It was pitch black.
Squished a rat with his bare hands.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
That's his best moment in the show. But there's
so far.
Yeah. There's just time. I feel like it's something in his delivery. I don't know what it is. I don't think he's bad. I also said I think Vince Vaughn should stop doing as many comedies and do some more of these.
Oh, absolutely.
Or do something more dramatic.
He's fucking intense, man.
Yeah, he can be intense. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Behind all the dick things he says and all of the being hard and and all of that, and trying to make himself appear emotionless. You see a bevy of emotions behind the face, and that's with his interactions with his wife or gangster wife or whatever.
Who is also good. I think she's good.
Oh yeah, she's great. Strong woman number one of the show. Strong woman number two is
Rachel McAdams.
Yeah,
Can't remember her
detective.
name. Something Benedizi or whatever. I can't remember what her name is.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's a fucked up name.
Yeah.
One thing I do like is the fact that they amped up the characters. It's not just the three detectives, but it's also Vince Vaughn's character, and I feel like it takes cues from, again, don't mean to talk about video games, but like Grand Theft Auto 5. That game, instead of giving you one main character to play as through the whole thing, it's three main characters who you flit through.
Sure.
So I think it took a lot of inspiration, probably even from Grand Theft Auto 5.
Maybe that's why it's not as good, because it took more inspiration from a video game. I don't know. Getting back to, like I said, Colin Farrell, nice guy, and lost his way. There's a number of moments where he does things. This is where I think his character is the best, because it's the most subtle. If you look for these little things, they're there. For example, after the big thing in season 2 happens, that brutal shootout that happens, he retires from being a cop, or he is forced to resign, or whatever happens.
And he goes to enforcing for...
Yeah, and he's collecting rent from these people in this Mexican apartment complex.
Yep.
And they're they're giving him money, and he knocks on one lady's door. She opens, she gives him the money. She's short $200, and he cuts her a break when he doesn't have to.
No.
He wouldn't do that if he wasn't, like, there's something inside of him that's good.
Right.
And I think that's why I like him the most, because he does some real fucked up stuff in this show. But it's like, I want him to be better. I want him to win. I want him to be good in a way.
There's a lot of stuff in the second season that is just very Californian. Like the Rachel McAdams' father in the show. It's like the hippie therapist guy. Talking about auras and just how people,
says Colin Farrell has one of the biggest auras he's ever seen. Or
green
whatever.
and black.
I don't know what that means.
But I kind of...
I like to think that, like, the green is the good and the black is the evil, and, like, he's at war with himself or something.
But I can kind of see a lot of that in throughout the whole show, is it does present this idea of, that you are who you are no matter, how much you try not to be or whatever.
Yeah, and the lavish / decrepit lifestyle of, like, these high society types in Vinci and Los Angeles, I think that it plays really well. Because instead of going to gritty, dirty Louisiana, you have to do the opposite. You have to go to, like, the nicest place. Los Angeles must have the nicest houses in the world or something.
Sure.
And, like, when you take it there, but also juxtapose it with, like, this question about, like, this hippie guy is talking about, like, materialism and where we are, or maybe not materialism, but, like, why Rachel McAdams is the way she is and stuff. And I think it's a weird juxtaposition that works. Sometimes it doesn't, but I think most of the time it does. There's another example of when Colin Farrell does a good thing when he doesn't have to. It's Vinci is seen as this place where, like I said, crony capitalism has festered and stuff, because immigrants, companies needed more cheap labor, and they saw an opportunity of, like, a lawless sort of city where there's not environmental protection laws and stuff. Yeah. Basically, it's what Donald Trump wants for everyone. But they do. So these companies are allowed to create, like, these huge companies and pollute things, and they hire cheap immigrant labor. And so everything's dirty and kind of gross looking in this city. Mm-hmm. When you're into, like, the slums and the factory
Oh, are you
areas.
Talking about when he tells the kids to stop playing in the water?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He tells them, like, Peligro, get out of here, it's dirty. And the kid gives him the double birds.
Yeah,
gives him the
like,
finger.
fuck you, man, we're going to play in this water.
But I was like, again, he wouldn't do that.
If he didn't care
if he
didn't
didn't
a little bit.
If he didn't have something inside of him that's like, help the kids.
And he cares so much for his son.
He does. That's one of the most fascinating parts. That's why I think he's the best character, because he has the most questions that you want answered.
Despite all the bad things that he's done, all he really wants is just to do some good.
Yeah, I think it's strange. We'll get back to all these characters and where we find them. But, like, yeah, his the worst thing objectively, I think the worst thing he does is, like, his wife was sexually assaulted and may or may not have I don't know yet, but we assume she was raped, and she might have gotten pregnant from that rape. And
wait, you already know all the answers to this.
Yeah. Well, we don't know if she was indeed, that's how she got pregnant yet or not. I don't know, because I haven't seen the rest of the episodes yet.
Oh, yeah.
But, so we don't know that, but he kills the guy who he thinks is responsible, and it is later revealed in the show, because it's all spoilers, people.
The wrong guy.
That it's the wrong guy. And he
this
thinks,
fucks him up.
And he thinks Vince Vaughn did it on purpose to get dirt on him, to get dirt on Colin Farrell, so he'll become his enforcer and his corrupt cop.
Which was true, but
Vince Vaughn was like, why would I just give you the rapist if I could? So, like, I don't know who's lying yet, or I don't think Colin Farrell's lying. I think he believes that Vince Vaughn did it, but we don't know if Vince Vaughn is lying yet or if he really did it.
I know.
You know? Okay, well, I'm excited to find out. But yeah, definitely, it's because he does things that are like clearly awful next to those little things. You know, he's the example of a guy who's kind of like Marty. He's his own worst enemy. He has good intentions and he carries it to this, destructive extreme.
That's one thing that I kind of didn't like about the Velcoro character, Colin Farrell's character, is there was a little bit too much Rust Cole in there. You know, I felt like they had to have someone.
He's
like
the
that.
cynical, hard drinking guy.
Yeah.
I think he gives more of a damn.
It's the noir anchor. I feel.
Yeah.
Is Velcoro's character.
Yeah. I still think he's better than the other two, though. They're all. Here's the thing. This, like I said, season 2, I don't think is as good as season 1 for a variety of reasons, which we discussed earlier. But I think that it is, performance-wise, I think it's as good. Maybe in one or two instances, or maybe one or two scenes, maybe even better. One of the other notes that I had here, I want to get to this one. Because I kind of nailed this before.
Well, I love the relationships that the characters have with one another.
Yeah.
Like the relationship of Taylor
Kitsch.
Yeah, Taylor Kitsch. The relationship he has with his mom in the show it's fucking incredible. The dynamic. She makes him feel just horrible because
she's
he
awful.
ruined her career and all of this stuff.
What was her career again? I can't remember.
A dancer, I think.
Ah, yeah.
I was like, I was gonna be a dancer and you ruined me, and he's like,
Can't you still be that?
Right. And really, it's all about.
In my notes, I have Taylor Kitsch, pretty good, underrated in this.
Oh yeah, totally underrated.
Yeah.
There's lots of parental ideas in here, like how,
especially in
how
this
our
season.
parents and our past affects us later in life.
Yeah, his wife, you have it with two of the characters, especially. You have it. Rachel McAdams is like this tough, take no shit female cop.
Very.
She's like a foot shorter than everybody else, but she carries knives.
Hell, she gets caught with she gets charged with sexual harassment even.
Yeah, and I think
that's another great scene is how they deal with her sexual harassment charges when she goes into the group therapy, and they're all just like, "What are you in here?" And she's like, "Oh God, no.
It was
this shit."
Yeah, I thought that was just the juxtaposition of like these guys. These guys are saying things like, one of the guys said, like, the only difference between harassment and flirting is I'm not as attractive as other guys. He says the usual kind of victim blaming nonsense or whatever, and then then it pans over slowly to her face, and she's just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You just like you feel this kind of this simmering anger underneath everything, and I really dug that. I like that she is not to turn into like some anti-feminist crazy person here, but I like that she is kind of a bit of a man-hater in a way.
I do like that.
Partly because of her father. Her father became this weird absentee hippie.
You'll see a little bit more to that later in the show. I think you're coming up on the episode, actually, that really delves more into her backstory.
Yeah. I like this idea because... Yeah, I'm excited to see that, honestly, because I think that's the most fascinating part of her. That and like the
she
fact
grew up like on a convent with a bunch of hippies and
yeah,
had to like make her own way.
Yeah, but because of that, they had zero guidance and zero sort of support from their parents. It was all, well, do whatever you want. Like, and I was like, because of that, like she had 4 siblings. 2 of them are dead.
Sure, and
one
she
of them
decides
was in jail.
And she decides to go and be a detective. One of the most orderly things you possibly can. She chooses hyper order.
Yeah, she kind of lashes out against her father, which is, I think one of the reasons she has this kind of promiscuous sex with like 2 of her underlings at a time. not at a time, but like two of her underlings that are like, beneath her or whatever, and she gets in trouble for that. Partly because she doesn't want to have a relationship that's that deep because maybe it will
Make her feel things.
Yeah, but also because like I don't think she wants to give a man that much power over her.
Oh yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
that's part of it. And I think that's why she carries knives, because the thing she's most afraid of is like someone having that power over her,
Right.
of like dominating her. So she carries these little quick knives that she can practice with or whatever. So if like she says, like the fundamental difference between the sexes is that one of them can kill the other with their bare hands, and like that's what she says to Velcoro.
And she wants to
and
turn the tables on that.
And Velcoro says, by the way, I'm a feminist and I've always supported feminism.
Yeah.
I thought it was very funny. He tries to score social brownie points with that. But I think that's super interesting, and I think I like the fact that she's
more than just like your. I don't want to say like. She's more than just like your cookie cutter strong woman.
Yeah, like a lot of times when they make strong female characters, not all the time, it's like certain, like Wonder Woman is a good example of not doing this, but like they just make her the male action hero with boobs.
Right.
But
she's not a Tomb Raider.
She's a strong, silent type, and she does the things that we expect the male characters to do. She's strong, she's silent, she responds and grunts like Mad Max or something.
Yeah.
That's another good example of a strong female character.
Oh yeah,
the chick from that, the robot arm. What's her name?
Furiosa.
Yeah, that's another example. They don't make her just a female version of like a badass male character. They just make her good at some things.
Sure.
And then make her whatever she is. So like in this, I would say that like Rachel McAdams she's not more flawed than Colin Farrell. I root for Colin Farrell more in a way because he is more flawed, but also she has the worst hangups though.
She really does.
Yeah, like I think Colin Farrell is like a guy. He's like Macbeth or something. He's like, there's a line from Macbeth where he says, "I'm so far steeped in blood that to go back is as treacherous as to go forward." Sure. I feel like that is Colin Farrell. He's so deep, he doesn't know how to get out. But Rachel McAdams can get out.
Yeah, she sees the end of she sees the light. She sees a way to climb out of the hole.
Yeah.
But she goes back into the hole.
Yeah.
Each time she chooses to. It's not.
She's got that bitterness, which I think works for her. So I think that's an interesting idea on her character and like where her motivations come from. Let's move on to Taylor Kitsch, because I actually want to talk about his specifically, because I made a few predictions about his character and they both kind of came true. The first one, like when I first meet him, I was like, what's up?
He seems way more complicated than...
And he seems like he's got some mental thing going on. Like, I don't know if he's got some sociopathy, but when I was
about to crack.
Yeah, like he's got this weird, like, 1,000-yard stare thing going on.
Sure. And it's intense, boy.
And so he comes, and he gets, like, blackmailed by this actress who's
on house arrest, breaks her parole.
Yeah,
he's on the motorcycle. He catches her speeding.
He pulls her over, and she basically, in the scene, she offers suggestively to go back to his place or whatever, or her place, and have sex so that he won't give her a ticket.
He'll let her off, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't. Gives her the ticket or whatever,
and gets in fucking trouble.
Yeah, she lies and says that like he solicited her for a blowjob in order to not give her the ticket, and she refused. And
throughout the whole show, he's dealing with this.
Yes,
and not to mention, my bad.
Careful, don't touch the microphone.
My bad.
It's good.
Not to mention other shit from his past, from like apparently this black ops stuff.
Yeah, he was in a mercenary group in the army or something. Not in the
Merchant
army.
Marines, some kind of thing like that.
Yeah, and they hit that group, maybe not him particularly, but that mercenary group did some war crimes or something overseas.
Well, no, we see that he went to Pandar. Remember, he bled for this money.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean he was in the place. That just means he was in the group and he saw some combat. I don't know yet. I don't know. I like to think that he did do some of this stuff, and it's because he's naive. But getting back to his character, so we see he has this mental tick. He's taken off the road. He doesn't like it. He likes being on the bike. He's really persistent about that in the show.
I want to be on the bike.
I want to be on the bike. It suits me, he says.
Yeah.
And I think that like there's something there that I really appreciate about that. But he's I was asking myself, like, what's up with him? There's something up with him. I don't know what it is. He comes home to his girlfriend, who, by the way, is stone cold gorgeous. And
Fox.
Also, I like the actress, too. Like she's really good in the show.
And he doesn't really want much to do with her.
But yeah,
He's
like when he comes
detached.
when she comes home, she's like, get over here, hot stuff. I've been waiting all day, and she's like, she's really horny or whatever. And
he's got to take some pills to get it up.
Yeah, and at first I was like, what was it? So he
is that just trauma? Is that just what?
Yeah, I didn't quite know yet because I was like at first. He tells her, "Oh, I stink. Let me go take a shower." He goes in there, turns the shower on, doesn't get in, takes a pill of some sort, and I was like, "Is that like Viagra or
Probably
is that
Viagra.
like is that?" Yeah, and like he comes out and like he has this very charming kind of
ladies' man vibe.
He's in the towel, but it's very suggestive. She takes it off and they have sex or whatever.
You can tell he's good at this.
And I was like, what's going on there? And I was like, then, right then is when I went like, he's gay.
Yep.
He has gay
tendencies,
urges or something, and he's ashamed of it.
Very much so.
And
that's his whole deal, man.
Yeah, and after like I think it was episode 3 or 4, one of his other like soldier friends or whatever comes back.
And apparently they had a Brokeback Mountain moment.
Yeah, or something.
In the army or whatever.
Yeah, he puts his hand on his chest and he goes, "Don't tell me you don't think about it too," or whatever. And he like freaks out on him.
He's like, "No, bro, that's not me, bro."
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh my god, I was right. I nailed it."
And I think that.
But I think that's interesting. That's more interesting than him being the strong silent type because he's the most. It's weird, man. This is why I think he's underrated because he plays this straddling line very good between like I'm on the edge of losing my cool and also stone cold. Like during that,
I've got this.
During that massive shootout, he takes out like 5 dudes.
I think it's a great representation of just like probably just servicemen who might be in the closet. Like, they've got such order and rigid structure in their lives, but they have this one thing that they can't, really own. You know what I mean?
Which is weird because when he wakes up apparently like in episode, I think it was episode 4 or 5, he wakes up in the bed. He got real shit faced or something. He wakes
trying
up
to get some evidence. Goes to the club, sees if he can't. Yeah,
we'll get more into the plot in a second. But he wakes up in this bed, and it's the bed of his army buddy, and it's implied that they had sex or something.
Right.
We don't know exactly, but as he's freaking out, like he gets on his stuff and he's fixing to leave, and the dude just goes, kind of shakes his head and he goes, "Man," he's like, don't do this to yourself. Like, don't kind of deny what you are or whatever.
Yeah.
And he does, and he leaves.
He very vehemently denies it.
Yeah, and he's very angry. And as he's leaving, you feel bad for him.
You do.
In
Your
a
heart
way.
tears for him.
Yeah.
It's like, man, why can't you just
be who you are, man. It's all
man,
good.
it's California.
Yeah, if there's ever a place where you can.
Real.
But that part really interested me. And then you add into the dynamic like his mother, who he has an estranged relationship with. It sounds like they've only recently gotten back to talking to each other or something. It implies, you don't know that, but it implies
there's huge rift.
Yeah, and it's very strange. Like he seems like a guy that wants to have a relationship with her. Like he wants to have a nice rapport.
Right, but she's constantly throwing this guilt and this shame at him,
and
like,
little jabs and stuff. But I was like, I don't like this woman. I don't like her at all. But I was like, yeah, that was.
Well, she sees him as an extension of her. Like he ruined her life, so you better fucking make your life great for me because I made you.
He steals his money. He steals like 20 grand of his money, and I was like, Jesus Christ. All right, so let's talk about like some of the plots and what little of it I can actually.
Oh
do.
boy, that plot. Let's unpack it.
Then we'll start doing some wrap up and stuff. But so like it opens with there's a city planner, and Vince Vaughn's character is working with he's working with the city planner named Ben Casper, and they're working on a big like land development deal and railway deal. And it's going to make a lot of money.
Called the corridor.
Yeah, or something like that. I don't know. And then the guy is, at the end of the first episode, it's revealed that he's been killed. Brutally. Like tortured. They burned his eyes out with acid. It was
this land development guy who was holding all of
Vince Vaughn's money.
Yeah.
Which is now all gone. And his
pissed.
level of authority in these companies is now in question. And now he has to go like old school gangster, trying to cobble together money so that he can keep himself afloat. And
and become legitimate.
Yeah, and it's revealed that the death of this guy is coinciding with an investigation into Colin Farrell's police department, the Vinci PD or whatever,
which is totally corrupt through and through.
Yeah, I'm curious as to like which one of his characters, the Colin Farrell's superiors, how corrupt they are.
Oh, you'll see.
It's like I'm 99.
When I say corrupt through and through.
Yeah. Don't ruin it for you.
Oh boy.
It's okay. But like I get the vibe, especially that the black guy is super corrupt because he's constantly kind of agitated about things.
But he seems on the up and up.
Yeah, but I'm willing to bet money that he's not. But
you'll see.
All right, so Taylor Kitsch, after he gets in trouble for this being blackmailed by this actress, he goes on a bike ride to like scream rage his anger out, and he stumbles across
the body of Ben Casper.
Yeah, stumbles across the body, and all three people are called: the Highway Patrol, which is Taylor Kitsch's division. Vinci PD, which is Colin Farrell's, and I think State Police, which is Rachel McAdams' character.
Yep.
And they are forced to work together. And they all have, and one of the things I like about this is they all have different objectives that are given to them.
Right.
Taylor Kitsch is told to...
because the point of the thing is that putting all of these characters together, the case is not supposed to work out.
Yeah.
It's supposed to meet a dead end.
Yeah, it's a farce. But on top of the farce, they're also given these very
side quests.
They're very counterproductive
instructions.
Colin Farrell is told to solve it as quickly as possible and to kind of keep it away from any level of like like land developers or any of these people. It's like it's literally told. He's literally told by one of his superiors, pin it on a pimp.
Sure.
Like pin it on one of these pimps because the guy was. The Ben Casper was like a sex guy. He loved having sex, but he had some weird guilt about it, and he paid for prostitutes.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that happened. Rachel McAdams is told to keep tabs on Vinci PD so that they can find dirt on them to bring Colin Farrell and some of those guys down. Taylor Kitsch is told to... I can't remember what he's told. But he's told that if he does it, he'll get back on his bike or whatever and get a promotion or whatever.
And so they all have these disparate goals. Character, he's the Velcoro character, he's actually even... working the side angle with the
Vince
gangster.
Vaughn.
Yeah. He's the inside man.
Which I thought was interesting. There's a number of times where Colin Farrell asks Vince Vaughn these very simple questions, and Vince Vaughn responds with these weird, like, kind of, like I said, he's mean and rude, and I've never met a guy who gets this bristled about, like, what was on this hard drive.
He thinks everyone's stupid.
Yeah,
and just
and he goes, is that any of your business or whatever? And I was like, answer the question. He's helping you. What is your problem?
At one point, I think Vince Vaughn character asked him, he's like, who's your best informant? And he's like, well, you are. You're my best informant.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
It's good stuff.
But it's like, and just giving the outline of that plot, I was very much like, this is too complicated. Like,
oh yeah,
they should have streamlined this somehow.
I think that's what makes it great, though. I
don't think it makes it great. The characters make it great in spite of this weird, convoluted plot.
I think that the plot isn't supposed to matter. I know
you've said that, but it does for some people, which is why they don't like it.
Maybe I'm just one of those guys. I love the aesthetic. I love the fucking theme song.
Yeah, it's presented in such a way, like I said, just like season 1, it's presented in a way that's very serious. It's like, look at all these performances. Everyone's acting real good, and there's serious droning. There's the Matthew McConaughey man music that every man feels constantly, and there's all of these signs that it's great, except for like this plot is muddled. I know I can. Here's the thing, like I said,
it's confusing as hell.
Yeah, like
that is true.
I kept up with it. Because I paid a lot of attention. I was like, all right.
So much so that again,
remember this guy. There's deals going on with Russians, and there's companies,
Mexicans,
and
Russians.
There's land deals. There's certain land that's polluted. What? I don't know. So even then, I was still getting lost.
That's why I had to do a second watch, because I fell in love with the characters and the vibe and everything. But I was just like, man, I didn't really get what happened. Like, where were I think some loose ends were tied, but where did those loose ends come from?
There's good, sexy girl parties that happen also.
Oh, yeah, that stuff's dark and deep, too. Yeah. You haven't even gotten to that.
No, that's. I think it's in this episode, because it sounds like they're circling.
You going to watch it after we're done?
Yeah, I'll watch
Yeah,
it.
you're
I'll finish this one when we're done. Last thing I wanted to talk about was we were talking about like noir and like thrillers and stuff, and I wanted to talk about like thrillers and noir films that we like and certain ones that why we like the genre particularly. We talked about one already, and this one's is a dual pleasure for me because I love
Sin City.
I love comic books. I have those downstairs, and I also love noir, particularly this super silly noir. When I mean silly, it's like it's everything is exaggerated.
Yeah.
Even in the movie. The movie starts with, Sin City does, and you've seen it, I assume. So, like, it starts with this lady in this red dress, and it starts with Josh Hartnett coming up, and he's given the monologue voiceover, and she goes, the wind whispers like the last leaf on a dying tree. It's like it's real sensual, and everything is smooth, like warm oil on cracked leather or something.
It hits you with its words more, just as well as it does with its stylization.
Yeah, and he comes over to this girl and he goes like, I'm not here for the party. And he goes, I'm here for you. And she goes like, and she goes
so smooth, like fucking butter.
Yeah, and she goes like, he goes, you're running from something and you don't want to face it alone. And she goes, I don't want to face it alone. And they start, kissing and making out, and it rains. And he goes, our lips lock electric or something. And he goes, I look her in her eyes and I tell her, I love you. Bam! And the silencer goes off. And he goes, the silencer makes a whisper of the gunshot. And she goes, he goes, I'll never know what she was running from. I hold her close until she's gone. She goes, I'll cash the check in the morning. And I was like, that's one of the coolest ways to start a movie.
Oh,
it has
absolutely.
nothing to do with the rest of the movie. It's just a little opening 4-minute thing, and
it sets the tone.
Yeah, and it's super smooth. Josh Hartnett has never been that cool ever. He needs to do more movies like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Where he plays a smooth, suave, charming. He's at the end of the movie too, where he kills one of the women as well. But he's so smooth, and I was like, he should be the next James Bond. Or something. For the next super spy movie, he should be that.
Some people might not agree with this, but I think Blade Runner is actually
it's
definitely noir.
Well, it's definitely inspired by. There's a lot of the reason I wanted to talk about this at the end is there's a lot of movies that are inspired by noir and have they're like 50-50 noir and something else.
Yeah, they have.
Minority Report is half noir,
absolutely.
half sci-fi coolness.
Yeah,
which I like a lot. Also,
see what else? Some more noir-y stuff.
There's the old ones. There's like the Maltese Falcon and stuff like that, and and I feel like every movie from the 40s, 50s, and maybe 60s has the potential to be noir, just because the way they talk.
Sure.
Like I watched,
yeah,
I watched 12 Angry Men the other day, and I was like, this isn't noir.
That's not really how people talk.
Yeah, it's a lot of that stuff, but I like it, so I give it a pass. But Sin City is definitely one of the good ones. Not just because of because Frank Miller's writing. Frank Miller was built to create. I think someone on the back of one of
The
his
Watchmen. That's more comic booky noir stuff.
I don't know if that's noir per se. It's dark. I don't think it's noir though. It doesn't have some of the
you don't think?
Tropes. No, I don't, because
really even with all the Rorschach stuff.
No, he's designed to look like a noir character, but he the setting and everything else isn't noir.
The opening of fucking The Watchmen with the comedian and getting thrown out the window.
Yeah,
and
well, it's just
the
cool
tone
looking, but
setting.
I don't feel like. I think you're mistaking things that look cool with noir.
No,
because
hardly.
You've associated True Detective, which looks cool, with noir. But
True Detective is noir.
I know. I'm saying it. I'm
and
saying
it's in the daylight.
Yeah, but also, those are other tropes as well. But I think Watchmen is about. We'll have an episode.
Okay, now we have to have a fucking is Watchmen noir? Yes or no?
No, I don't think it is. I think it's I think Rorschach is a noirish character, but he has the voiceover. But other than that, there's not really much there. Like he dresses in a cool button-up jacket.
It's not even just Rorschach, man. It's all the characters that
name some of the tropes of noir for me.
Other than just how it feels,
yes.
How it makes me feel.
Just having. Here's the thing about I think about noir. The reason Watchmen feels.
I don't
noir,
pretend. I don't pretend to be a
expert.
not at all.
Okay.
We're not experts here.
I think one of the things about that I equate with noir is one, it's crime. It's always centered around crime and criminals and detectives and all that stuff. The best ones are. Not all of them are. Sin City kind of is. It's also about like people with yellow faces and golden eyes and samurais.
Goofy shit.
Yeah, which is why I love it. Because it's the silliest noir I've ever seen, but it acts like it's the most serious thing in the world, which is why I think it's...
Well, fine. I guess like the most noir thing...
But like, yeah, Watchmen doesn't...
is like Max Payne. I guess is like the most noir-y thing I could think of.
Yeah, but the movie's bad, though.
No, I'm not talking about the movie.
Yeah. But I think that, like, you know, you look at a movie like Minority Report, it's about crime. It's about crime and conspiracy. That's what we kind of look for in noir. There's tones as well. There's usually some darkness, usually some cynicism in the tone and all that stuff. Watchmen is definitely dark and cynical. I'll give it that. Because it's all about, you know, what if superheroes were real? And then, you know, Alan Moore says, well, if superheroes were real, they'd be horrible. They'd be filled with horrible personality defects, and they wouldn't be reliable. If you had real superpowers, you would be turned into a nuclear deterrent.
And they'd be presented with, you know, really heavy shit on their shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. We can't get too deep into Watchmen because that's for our we'll have a superhero episode. But
we will.
Yes.
Okay.
But name another, like, some other noirs that you like.
No, I don't want to.
No,
because now I don't think I know what noir means.
Yeah, no, you do. It's just like I think that Watchmen tricks people into thinking it's noir when really it's dark and it's cynical and it's very real.
Fair enough.
Which is weird because it's filled with people who dress up like, you know, idiots. So, but I think I still think it's. I still hold my.
I don't know. It is getting a little late, so I'm kind of racking my brain.
Yeah.
I had the best example.
Yeah.
But it's not even
Which
a movie.
One? What did you say?
It's not a movie.
Max Payne.
Yeah.
Get over the video game, man. It's a movie.
It's the best, though, man. It's the best.
Well, like Minority Report is one that I think is like Spielberg himself really said, like, I want this to be a noir. You know, it's about, like, you know, is it okay to stop crime before it happens? There's some sci-fi elements. Blade Runner, especially the new Blade Runner, if you've seen it, is definitely...
I need to so badly. I just need 3 spare hours to lock in.
Yeah, I think it's superior to...
You don't say.
The first one. I really do. I think people put that first one a little bit on a pedestal. I think it's good.
Does it have those big moments where it makes you question everything about the movie, everything that you
every second of the movie is that.
Oh yeah.
It's also 2 hours and 40 minutes long.
Yeah,
it's one of the longest.
I need like 3 fucking hours.
It's one of the longest movies I've seen. But I was like, when I was watching it, I was like, I hope this never ends.
Yeah.
Because it's my kind of sci-fi. Because it's dripping with, like, everything is... Like, one, it's got the noir aesthetic, which is what Blade Runner literally has. It's raining and trench coats. Like, that's the aesthetic.
Yeah.
So it gives you that. But it also gives you the sci-fi stuff of, like, what does it mean to be human? There's still... Blade Runners are still around, and they're still hunting down, like, you know, replicants and stuff.
So there's so much soul-searching.
Yeah. And I think that, like, one, it's like... It made Ryan Gosling... not look like a guy who does comedy. Like, Ryan Gosling has made a weird career out of playing characters that say nothing.
Oh yeah.
Almost the whole like Drive.
Oh, fucking Drive's noir.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Drive, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my pick, Drive.
Yeah, that's
right there.
Yeah. One of the things I love about that movie is one, like I just said, it was the first time
he doesn't say like
hardly shit. He doesn't say anything, and I was like, he kind of smiles and he feels charming at times, but even then, you're like, he doesn't say anything. It's got some,
and he's not a good guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he's a guy who does what maybe has to be done, but probably you didn't have to do that.
I wouldn't even say that. I think he's a guy who has his habits, and he doesn't like that being disrupted.
Sure.
Like, there's the part in the movie. First of all, it's got one of the traits of, I think, modern noir is like violence, real, like, harsh violence. And like Drive has the moment where he literally stomps a guy's face
stomps him in the elevator. Yeah.
And there's a part where he breaks a guy's arm with a hammer, which was brutal. And like, that scene is what I'm talking about, though, is when he
and there's always a love interest.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So he's got that love interest, somebody or someone he's supposed to protect.
Except True Detective doesn't have that at all.
No, but it does have people that they're trying to protect.
Yeah,
Velporo's character, he's got his son he's trying to protect.
Yeah, that's true.
McAdams' character's got her sister, that she's trying to protect.
Here's another trope: twisted family dynamics. Families that are sort of teetering on the brink.
Not your standard nuclear family type situation.
Yeah, well, even that, like they have exes or whatever. They're like, you watch old noir films, like, I used to be with him back in the day, but she's like, I couldn't fix all of his demons or something like that. All those sort of things like that, where the female ex has been with him, and she's like,
ooh,
no,
like Inherent Vice.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's probably the only Paul Thomas Anderson movie I kind of like, to be quite fucking honest.
We have a controversial episode coming up for that, I guess.
My hate of Paul Thomas Anderson movies. Get with it.
Doesn't sound like you hate him.
No, I don't hate him.
No.
And maybe it's because I am no expert, and maybe I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of movies that coast on that.
Like, you have
they're too smart. You don't get it, which is an argument I have used for two of my favorite movies. But that's on the superhero episode. But we'll get to that later.
Okay.
But I think family is a trait. Most of the noirs I'm thinking of, Blade Runner is in a roundabout way is sort of about protecting someone you care about. The first one. Minority Report is about Tom Cruise is predicted
his innocence.
It's protecting. Well, not just that, but like he had a family and he lost them. And that's sort of this impetus for his character.
So there's tragedy beforehand, before the opening credits even come into play.
Yeah, Sin City. Marv is
the tragedy has already happened, and so in noir you're really dealing with the aftermath of this tragedy.
Yeah, and I think noir, it's either you're dealing with the aftermath or you're trying to protect someone from the tragedy.
Sure.
Like and Sin City has all three of those. Marv, Goldie is killed, and he is hunting down the people that did it to her.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name? Dwight's story. He had a relationship with the chick Gail in Old Town, and he hooks back up with her, and then she gets in trouble, and he has to find his way back to her and stop her from getting hurt. Bruce Willis's character saves a girl at the beginning of the movie, goes to jail for her, pays the man's price or whatever, gets out. Has to protect her again. So it has literally all three of those. So I think that those are like things that I enjoy, and I think and
that's why I like Rachel McAdams' character so much, because there's always a damsel in distress. There's always a female to protect or something,
but it's not her though. Yeah, she's
protecting her damn self.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good stuff. But pretty good noirs out there. We should probably do. I think a lot of these share the same with westerns. I think westerns and noirs. I think a lot of my favorite westerns are just noirs in the West, like in the 1800s.
Reskinned with a desert and a horse.
Yeah, because they're always filled with gritty anti-heroes. There's always a prostitute or something. Like there's always violence and stuff. Like 3:10 to Yuma feels like. Have you ever seen that?
The new one or the old one?
The new one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like noirish with like, but just like it's a Western.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think it's pretty solid.
Super solid.
Yeah. I think it's about that time.
Yeah. Getting about that wrap up time. How long have we been going for anyway?
87 minutes. Woo! A little bit longer than the last one. We're
rolling right along, man.
Seems like it's a good place as any to end it. But this was episode 2 of the movie date with Rob and Zach. I am Rob.
And I'm Zach.
And we're going to get back. The next episode will be
Black
on...
Panther?
Yes.
Are we doing that one yet?
I think... No. I'd like to do it for the next
Do you think we're ready to talk about Black Panther?
I don't know if the internet will allow it. But we'll go... we're going to go see Black Panther, hopefully, and we'll talk about it. If not, we'll move it to the next episode after this one.
You could just call it, Are You Ready to Talk About Race?
I'm excited for it. I'm excited. I refuse to let people ruin my anticipation for that movie. Because everyone is trying to.
I'm excited to see it because of... And I hate to say this, but not because of the movements it's making or what it represents. I'm excited to see it because it's Black fucking Panther, and because in comics, like, I was always excited about a Black Panther because he's like the odd man out of like all of the big dudes, like in the Marvel Illuminati. It's like Professor X, Mr. Fantastic, and like all of these like geniuses or whatever. But then there's T'Challa,
Yeah.
and he's
Who is
a king. He's
skilled
just
in his own right.
right. He's more just mystical and fucking cool.
Yeah.
He's fucking cool.
I don't know a lot about Black Panther. The most I've ever read is I was reading when I read the Civil War comics. He was in them briefly, and I was like, oh, like they're trying to get him on this whole. Did you ever read those comics?
I did.
Comic books?
I read Civil War 1 and 2, and
I heard 2 is lackluster.
2's I. But we're not here to talk about comics.
No. We'll talk about this on the superhero episode. But yeah, Black Panther next week. Thank you guys for listening.
Gracias.
Yes, and we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.